Hello, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome back to Sportsman's Watch Outdoors News Report. We're going to get into a subject tonight that's pretty controversial. A little technical difficulty over here. Pretty controversial in a lot of ways. We're going to start talking about tonight overreach. Do game wardens have too much power? Now that can stretch into, law enforcement as well. Let me premise this before we get into it, though, by saying I highly support our law enforcement. I very much appreciate and respect all our first responders. But I do believe there's been a lot of bills, a lot of laws passed that give too much authority to certain law enforcement agencies. I'm not one of those defund law enforcement people or anarchy people against the government and stuff like that, but I do believe in limited government in all agencies. But we do have to have law and order. We do have to have government and structure, but we do not have to have as much as we have going on right now and allowing the overreach and taking away from our constitutional rights with a lot of the laws that are being passed. So we're going to get into, do game wardens have too much power? Before we start, I just want to reiterate, I am for law enforcement. I really want to get that across tonight. I just don't want people thinking that I'm anti-law enforcement or anything like that, because I am absolutely not. I have quite a few family members that are high-ranking officers down in Florida, and one of my really good friends up in the Dakotas was a very long-term game warden, and I have very much respect for all first responders, and our law enforcement is very, very well respected by me and appreciated. But let's get into some controversial topics as far as game wardens go. Do game wardens have too much authority, or do they need these powers to protect our wildlife resources? One of the very, very controversial subjects is the open fields doctrine. The center of the controversy is something called the open fields doctrine. Most Americans believe if they own property and post it with no trespassing signs, the government officials need a warrant before entering. Makes sense, don't it? But under federal court rulings, that's not always the case. In many situations, game wardens can enter private land, timber property, pastures, and wooded acreage without a warrant while investigating wildlife violations. But they don't know if there's a violation until they go onto the property. See the gray area there? For many landowners, that's shocking discovery. A lot of landowners don't know this is a fact. Their idea is, it's my land. How can the government come onto it without permission? Others argue that without the authority, poachers would have free reign across millions of acres of private property. So I guess there's an argument for everything. What can game wardens do? In many states, conservation officers may have the authority to check hunting and fishing licenses. That's another topic. Check hunting and fishing licenses, inspect harvested game, investigate reports of poaching, enter open private land during wildlife investigations, enforce state hunting and fishing regulations. Now, I'm not going to say where, but I was hunting somewhere before and literally with my own eyes watched two game wardens go on to private property. This was a cattle ranch. They opened gates, drove in, and left the gates open with cows in the field. Absolutely no respect and no regard for this rancher's livelihood, for his private property, the cows and his land, his gates. Absolutely no respect for it. Now, cows did not get out, but they absolutely could have, and it was a total disrespect for this man's land. And not only that, they found absolutely nothing wrong on the property. So, huge overreach, big, bad judgment on their part. Completely disrespect. And game wardens, you should understand people's livelihood and livestock. and just completely left the gates open. 2 gates. Now remember, the laws vary by state. We know that. Laws vary by state. It's different in different states. Now I'm going to take a little rabbit trail here, because when I lived in the Dakotas, Clay, a very close friend of mine, if you watch the Sunday Sportsman on Guns in the 701, Clay produces Guns in the 701 and our Sunday Sportsman Christian Devotion on Sunday mornings. Clay's a very good friend of mine, been for many years now. He lives in North Dakota, right over the South Dakota line. Now, I'd have to check on this. I probably should have done that before I did this show, but in the Dakotas, it used to be if your property was not posted, people could just walk onto your property and hunt. Now, I don't understand that in any way, shape, or form. But in the Dakotas, if you don't have it, no trespassing, no hunting signs put up on your own property all the way around it, then people can just get out of their truck, take their guns, walk onto your property, and kill deer. I don't understand how anybody in their right mind could possibly think that's okay. Now, like I said, Clay's a very close friend of mine. When I was living up there, I knew I could go hunt Clay's property. Pheasant season come up, Clay, go and hunt your property. But I would never walk on to even a close friend's property and just go hunt. I didn't know where his kids were, if they were out doing chores or if they were out in the fields checking cows. I didn't know where his wife was. I know where Clay was. Things need to be known before you just go onto somebody's private property and start firing off guns. Besides that, it's just a matter of respect for other people's private property. All right, that's my little rabbit trail. And despite what some people believe, game wardens generally cannot simply walk into your house without legal justification. Homes in the immediate area around them typically have stronger constitutional protections. Now, that doesn't make sense to me either, because here, Clay again is another fine example, and actually many of my friends up in the Dakotas, because ranches up there are very big. Clay's house and barns and stuff is on a corner of his property. Well, it's thousands of acres, so on the other side of his property, it's miles away. But that's still his property. Stay off my property. It's that simple. I believe they should have to come contact the property owner, get permission, and say, hey, we've got a problem over here. We need to investigate. But it's not just me. There's a lot of people that think that way. Why landowners are fighting back. Across the country, property rights groups are challenging these laws. The argument is straightforward. If private property is private property, then government officials should need a warrant to be entering. Many landowners feel that wildlife enforcement should follow the same constitutional standards applied to other law enforcement agencies, because it is a fact that wildlife officers do have more leniency in how they do things, and that leniency steps them far over constitutional boundaries. Another rabbit trail here. There was a case in Florida. In Florida, for a long time, game wardens, the FWC could just pull up to your boat and start inspecting. No probable cause, no nothing. Just, we want to inspect and make sure you had all your safety equipment and all that kind of stuff that you are required by law to carry on your boat. But there was an instance where a well-to-do, I forget what company it was, but some IT tech guru, multi-millionaire guy was pulled over by FWC. They started doing a routine check. He was nervous. Clean-cut guy, never been in trouble with the law, not used to having law enforcement in front of him. So he was a little nervous. And when he was opening a bag to show some of his safety gear, he fumbled with the zipper a little bit and was just showing some signs of nervousness. They took it as being impaired. So they put him on their boat, ran some of the field sobriety tests, and said they believed him to be impaired. Well, his wife, his children, and him swore, we have not had any alcohol whatsoever. Well, they wound up arresting him for BWI, boating while intoxicated. Got back to the police department, and he blew a zero point 0. He had no alcohol. They overstepped boundaries and made a very, very bad call. Well, because of his higher up connections from being such a wealthy to-do person, it got to Ron DeSantis, and they wound up changing the stop and search law. You know, I say stop and search, but it was to stop and investigate whether they were legal or not. There's another story. Stop and see if they're legal or not. So there's my rabbit trail on that. You know, there's a lot of bad calls made when you give too much. I mean, they can so far overstep constitutionally and make bad decisions. That was a bad decision. I watched the whole video, the body cam, and the officer seemed to be pretty disrespectful. He seemed to be really think he had somebody there and was really doing a big thing. And I mean, had this guy's poor little girls on the boat crying, and his wife is freaking out. And it was just a bad situation. And the guy seemed like a stand-up guy. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just boating along. And they said he was swerving in his boat. It's a boat. I swerve in my boat all the time. If I see me a good wake, I want to hit it. I mean, it's a boat. You don't exactly have white lines and yellow lines to follow. Just keep it in the buoys and you're good. Tennessee. Tennessee's done something recently. Tennessee case draws national attention. One of the biggest recent developments has happened up in Tennessee. A state appeals court ruled that wildlife officers conducting warrantless searches of private property violated protections under the Tennessee Constitution. Now, I go further and say that violates the United States Constitution, not just Tennessee, but kudos to Tennessee for taking that stand. The ruling was seen as a major victory for property rights advocates. Supporters called it a win for the constitutional freedoms. Critics worried it could make it harder to catch poachers. The debate is far from over, and we're going to keep an eye on that and see how that's going up there in Tennessee. Now, next story is right here in Alabama, where I live. Here in Alabama, a legal challenge is underway. A case focuses on whether conservation officers should be allowed to enter private property without a warrant while enforcing wildlife laws. Depending on how the courts ultimately rule, the outcome could impact hunters, landowners, and game wardens throughout the state. This is one outdoor issue worth watching closely, and we're going to. Now, here's something. I'm going to go off on another rabbit trail here. The case focuses on whether conservation officers should be allowed to enter private property without a warrant while enforcing wildlife laws. Listen here. Are we taking animals more seriously than we're taking human beings? I mean, if they thought I had tons of drugs in my house that could go out into the streets and harm and kill lots of people, they would need a warrant to come into my house and check it. But if I killed a deer out of season and it's in my backyard, we just gonna go get him. Come on, y'all. The other side of the argument. Wildlife agencies point out that poachers are rarely operating in public parks and parking lots. Basically, they're saying, they're not out here in the wide open where we can see them breaking the law. They're out there on private property and out, in places where we have to step across constitutional lines to go get them. Most violations occur in remote woods, agricultural land, and private hunting property. The argument is that requiring a warrant every time an officer needs to investigate suspicious activity would make enforcement nearly impossible. And let's be honest, most sportsmen hate poachers. Listen, I know, like I said at the beginning, I support wildlife conservation officers. I absolutely do. I just believe that there's too much authority given to allow overstepping our constitutional rights. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to straight up here. I'll probably get some nasty messages and be corrected on this in many terms, but I believe in a lot of areas our rights are completely stolen from us. They're stripped away from us by the United States government and sold back to us in the name of rights or fees and licenses and permits. Prove me wrong. I don't think you can. Another little rabbit trail for you. So I do support structured, proper law and order and game wardens. I just think they need to have better accountability. Let's put it that way. Poachers steal game from everyone and damage the reputation of ethical hunters. That's a fact. I mean, we don't want people out there killing animals that need to grow and mature so that we can continue to have healthy herds and populations of deer for everyone to enjoy and future generations to enjoy. There's got to be some structure. So there is a valid argument to an extent. I want some comments here, guys. Help me out. Give me some information. Give me some of your thoughts on this. Should private property always require a warrant? I have my opinion. I think you know where I stand on that. Or should conservation officers have special authority when enforcing game laws? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let me know what you think. Keep it respectful. Keep it civil. Let's not get into a big argument. I don't mind a debate. Let's just not get ugly about it, all right? So, guys, I appreciate you joining tonight. Chime in there and let me know what you think. I will always state proudly and boldly, I support law enforcement officers and conservation officers, firefighters, and all first responders. Much respect. It's, the laws that they're sworn to uphold and enforce, it's not necessarily them giving them too much authority, although, few bad officers out there, and I do not hold one bad apple against the whole barrel. I'm not that guy. I know that there can be a bad officer or two and make the rest of them look bad. When there's the majority of them are actually good, upstanding law enforcement officers. But I just really, really want to get that across, because I'm not attacking law enforcement. I'm attacking government giving too much authority for law enforcement to overreach. While they're out there just doing their job, that job may require them to cross over our constitutional rights. So, you guys, let me know what you think. I sure appreciate you joining tonight. God bless y'all, and we will see you Thursday night on Catching Up. God bless.